A Titanic toy company rides the wave of a booming video game market and takes the crash head on. Will it survive? Let's take a look at the Intellivision.
The John Geyer family will be using their TV to help compute their federal income tax, learn French, improve math skills, and quarterback an NFL team.
Here comes the line of scrimmage.
Introducing Intellivision, the new home video system from HAAL Electronica. 2 components, each sold separately. Start with the master component, available now for super games like NFL football.
To pass.
Go for it, Dad.
Caught it.
And for learning fun from the electric company.
Now this one's a little tougher. I got it.
And when you add the keyboard component, available this summer, Intellivision can change your family's life. It simplifies financial planning, even custom designs a Jack LaLanne exercise program for you.
1, 2,
Slave dryer.
1.
There is an entire library of Intellivision programs designed to grow right along with your family's interests. Discover Intellivision. It can change your family's life.
What's up, guys? Linux Fan Man back with another episode of A Look At. And in today's episode of A Look At, we're going to be taking a look at that system right there. That's Mattel's Intellivision. And we're going to be looking at the history of the Intellivision, what's inside of the console itself. We're going to be taking a 360 tour view of the console, showing you all the ins and outs of it. And usually what I do is I go into gameplay over here on the TV and put it on a video capture device. But this is one of the older RF systems, kind of like the ColecoVision, my last video I did. Same thing. We're just going to hop straight into emulation because it's just way too staticky. I can't get a good signal off of it. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and do the conclusion where I give you my thoughts on the Intellivision and kind of my history with it and other things like that. And then also in between every segment, I put a commercial for the Intellivision or whatever system I do in these series. I always put commercials in between to just kind of show you the advertising and the marketing for the system as well. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and take a look.
I'll try almost anything. So when Mattel Electronics asked me to compare their Intellivision games with Atari, I gave it a try. I compared Atari baseball with Intellivision and found Intellivision played much more like real baseball. Then I compared Atari football with Intellivision. Again, Intellivision played more like the real game. In my opinion, if you try them both, there's only one conclusion you can come to. Intellivision from Mattel Electronics.
The story of the Intellivision started in 1977. At this time, Mattel had started the Mattel Electronics division to produce the handheld electronic games and started the development of the Intellivision. Mattel wanted something that was better than what the competition had at the time, so they started working with APH Technological Consulting and started shopping for a chipset for the new console. First, they worked with National Semiconductor to get a powerful chipset, but they deemed this chipset too expensive. At about the same time, APH consulted with General Instruments. They were interested in the General Instruments chipset named Gemini. The only problem with this chipset is that it didn't have reprogrammable graphics. General Instruments worked with Mattel to create a custom chipset just for Mattel's new game system. Because Mattel had basically went with National Semiconductor first, they waited 2 months before actually closing the deal with General Instruments for their new chipset. A team of engineers at Mattel, headed by David Chandler, began work on the development of the hardware. Then in 1978, David Roth of APH developed the execute program that was used to execute the game programs. Also, with a group of students from Caltech, they started designing the first games for the Intellivision. The Intellivision was debuted at the 1979 Las Vegas CES show in January. The master component system was debuted at a starting price of $165, with the soon-to-follow keyboard component at the same price of $165. At the Chicago CES show in June, those prices were actually revised to $250 for each unit. This was due to a shortage of chips that were needed for both components. In the fall of 1979, GTE started selling its own branded version of the Intellivision, licensed from Mattel, and they started selling these units in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. at its GTE stores at a price of $280. Mattel started distributing consoles to Godluck's department store with a suggested retail price of $275. It was also put into the JCPenney 1979 Christmas catalog. Also listed were 7 cartridges with the master component system being priced at $249. By 1981, 19 cartridges were produced by APH Technologies and the students from Caltech. And with the success of these cartridges, Mattel wanted to have their own in-house programmers, codenamed the Blue Sky Rangers. And to keep these programmers from being hired away by the likes of Atari, Mattel kept their identities and their work locations private. In the spring of 1983, Mattel introduced the Intellivision 2, which was a smaller, compact version of the Intellivision, and it was cost reduced to save Mattel money and bring a lower price to the consumer. As we all know, the video game crash came in 1983, and Mattel saw the losses coming as well. During 1983 and 1984, most of the staff from Intellivision Electronics Division was laid off. And on November 4th, 1984, Mattel sold the Intellivision business to the INTV Corporation, which was led by former Mattel's Electronics Senior Vice President of Marketing, Terence Valinsky. At first, INTV Corporation sold the remaining inventory of the Intellivision games and consoles. Then they produced what was known as the INTV 3, a rebranded original Intellivision. This was produced until 1990, when the Intellivision finally reached the end of its lifespan. This gave the Intellivision an 11-year run with 2 different companies. Sales of the unit are vague. When Mattel had control of the company, they had sold a little less than 3 million units from 1979 to 1983. Unfortunately, I could not find sales figures for the time that the INTV Corporation sold the unit, so I'm not quite sure how many units were sold in total.
I've been comparing the exciting new Intellivision space game Star Strike with one of the most popular Atari games, Asteroid. Star Strike has moving images that make the game appear three-dimensional. Asteroids doesn't. And Star Strike features our most exciting visual effect, total destruction of a planet. This is what the other game offers, which is why, after Star Strike, Asteroids left me rather flat.
The Intellivision was powered by a General Instrument CP1610 16-bit microprocessor, making it truly the first 16-bit game console. It ran at 1.78 MHz and used a 16-bit multiplex data address bus. Next up is the Standard Television Interface Chip, or STIC, by General Instruments. This was a custom chip developed just for the Intellivision by General Instruments. The chip number is the General Instruments AY3-8900. It operated at 3.57 MHz and had a 16-bit multiplex data and address bus shared with the CPU. It had a resolution of 159 by 96 and had a 20 by 12 tile playfield where the tiles were 8 by 8 pixels. It also was capable of having 8 sprites on screen at once. It had fine horizontal and vertical pixel scrolling, and the GRAM was reprogrammable 60 times per second. The sound chip was the General Instruments AY3-8914, capable of 3-channel sound with 1 noise generator. It had 1456 bytes of RAM, or system RAM, and had 7168 bytes of ROM used by the exec program.
Football fans will sit through almost anything to watch a good football game. Here's Intellivision NFL football. Come on! Now for Atari football. Hey, where'd everybody go? Intellivision football. I think it's the closest thing to the real thing.
All right, guys, so here's the Intellivision here. So you got controller 1 on the left-hand side and controller 2 on the right-hand side. Right here is your actual reset button, and here's your on and off switch. Nothing really on the front, just the wood grain. On this side here, you have the cartridge port to plug your cartridge in, or like say for instance that voice module as well. Back of the system, you have the RF right there on the left hand side, and then you have your power cord. What's cool about this power cord here is it actually stores inside of the Intellivision, the transformers inside the Intellivision too, so you don't have this big ass brick sticking out of it. Kind of nice. And on this side, nothing there. The molded plastic. And then the bottom here, so this is a model, what does that say, 2609. And then you have the channel select switch on the bottom as well. Now you can see mine has a little bit of damage to the aluminum up top. In fact, when I got this was all pulled up, so I actually hot glued it down and couldn't make it flat. I mean, I tried, but there's just dents in it. It kind of sucks, but the Intellivision still works. It's just got a really shitty signal here in my house, unfortunately. But here's the controllers, guys. So this kind of pull out, it's like a phone cord. Now these do not detach from the system. These are attached straight to the motherboard. So that was kind of a down point to the Intellivision. I kind of thought is simply because of that. Here's the numpad, keypad, where you can select like player 1, 2, whatever the options are in the game. And then this disc thing right here, this is definitely different, guys. It takes a little getting used to be able to control this, but once you get used to it, it's actually a pretty slick control. I've always kind of liked it. Now the cord stores like in here, so you gotta stuff everything in here and then hope for the best to be able to get the controller back in. But anyway, let's go ahead and put this back up on the shelf, and let's go ahead and hop into some emulation and look at some gameplay, guys.
I've been making more comparisons between Mattel Electronics Intellivision and Atari. Different games, but the same results. Look at Atari Basketball and Intellivision. I think Intellivision plays much more like real basketball. Here's Atari Soccer and Intellivision. Again, I find Intellivision more sophisticated and lifelike. If you try them both, I think you'll find the clear winner is Intellivision from Mattel Electronics.
All right, guys, so we've come to the end of the video where I kind of give you my thoughts on the system that we're talking about, which is that one right there, the Intellivision. So growing up in the 80s, I really didn't know anybody or ever played an Intellivision. That might be a shocker to some people, but where I live, Atari basically reigned. Everybody had either 2600s, 5200s, or 7800s, pretty much until Nintendo came out, until the NES came out. So I never really got to play the Intellivision up until I got my first one in 2011. I got some games with it and the voice module, and I really thought it was a cool system. And one of my favorite games for it is Venture. Now, you know, Venture's on the ColecoVision, which is over here behind the chair. You guys can't see it. And the Atari and a few other, you know, older generation systems like that. But the way the character kind of spins in a circle and stuff like that, it's just perfect for that pad, that circular pad that's on that controller of the Intellivision. It's kind of like an analog pad before they had analog. But anyway, guys, another thing I wanted to say before I let you go, I just wanted to give a shout out to all my subscribers. You guys are great. I noticed a few more people subscribed to me over the week, so I wanted to give you a big thank you for that, and just let you know that you are the guys that support this channel here, and you're the reason I do what I do here. So just trying to, you know, spread the retro game knowledge and love for you guys. All right, guys, so that about ends the video here. So I just wanted to say thanks once again to all you guys out there watching, and peace out.